What's up, traders? Matt from the Trade Brigade here with your weekend crypto report, where as always, I do a technical analysis and give you my thoughts on the coins listed up above. There's been one addition to the very bottom of our watch list here. It's VGX USD. That, of course, is Voyager Token. The reason it made the cut for today's video is because it is trending on social media, and there's actually a decent amount of volatility in that name right now. So we'll take a peek towards the end of today's video. First up on the chopping block, as always, is our Bitcoin daily time frame chart. What do we see going on with the price action here? Some fairly concerning looks, to be quite frank with you, so let's just dive right into it. If you recall, and if you've watched the channel for any period of time, you know that we have something called balance rules. Whenever we have a balance range in place, there's a certain number of outcomes that can take place, and one of them is a look above and fail. That has certainly triggered here on the Bitcoin daily time frame, and we should be targeting the low end of balance as our ultimate destination there to complete and satisfy that trade rotation. That number as a target, the low end of the range here, is $28,650 per coin. Now, that's also going to be a critical breakdown point going forward, because if we breach this level, look left here, the only little bit of support that we have on the way down is this lower wick, which ends all the way down at $24,100 per coin. So overall, I would not be overly enthusiastic about longs at this point in time inside of Bitcoin. Based on the fake breakout here, trapping longs and just being a failed breakout in general, right? There was no follow through. That would strike me as a sign of weakness, that there's really, there's no interest in upside lift here inside of Bitcoin. If this is going to fall into the long category, for me, it's got to break this trend line. And let me just quickly pop this on auto so you can see where that's coming from. Of course, its anchor is up here, touch 1, 2, 3, right? That's got to break before I'm getting bullish on Bitcoin again. And even then, we really have a limited upside target just into $34,350 per coin, which is coming from the low end of this overall range right here, where the really aggressive breakdown stemmed from when there was that whole Luna depegging debacle, right? So overall, longs are certainly not attractive in the crypto marketplace in general right now, and Bitcoin is sort of, echoing that sentiment, being well underneath the support resistance trend line, and giving us a fake breakout to sort of look at right there. So overall, instead of looking for longs, I would be very neutral in this overall range. If a long is going to occur, it's got to be a break of the trend line for higher. And if we crack these lows at 28,650, then I would be looking for the rotation here to the wick around $24,100 per coin. So neutral, long here, short here. It's as simple as that. When the market's going sideways here, it's very boring. It's just a waiting game. So please wait for one of those levels to be breached. Let's continue along and talk about Ethereum. This has been acting as a market leader over the past couple of sessions. If you remember in last week's video, we discussed that if Ethereum was going to bounce off of this lower wick because it was well underneath the breakdown point compared to Bitcoin, then Bitcoin probably wasn't going to break down last week. That obviously took place. But an interesting dynamic that's starting to unfold here is that we are clearly seeing a series of lower highs, which is why we have this micro resistance trend line in place. And that, of course, is more of a bearish indication for Bitcoin overall to break the low end of its bear flag, right? Notice that on the bounce here, was there any acceptance inside of the prior flag consolidation from right here? Virtually none, right? We formed, of course, a lower high, and now we're coming back down for the equal low around 1692. As you know, with 1, 2, 3 interactions now around this level, we can classify that as a flush point, especially with the lower highs. This is setting up a short trade idea, which would, of course, impact Bitcoin to the downside underneath 1692. Your first target is going to be 1500 to the downside. If I pop this on auto and scrunch it up, you'll be able to see that here in just a moment. So a critical pivot low, which was also resistant from in the past. It's also just a nice psychological number. And then underneath that, the true line in the sand here inside of Ethereum is going to be 1362 on the downside. Just like in Bitcoin, I would be very, very skeptical about longs inside of Ethereum until we get a break of the micro resistance trend line. But even then, again, depending on when and if this even happens in the first place, you're going to have a very conservative target just up towards these highs and the dominant resistance trend line, which could coincide, depending on when and if, again, around 2150. That would be my upside level to watch out for if for some reason there's a break. But currently, all of the price action and what we see on the chart in front of us is pointing to lower with this bearish pattern that's unfolding. Continuing along, we have Binance Coin. What's going on in this one? The reason I'm leaving these levels as is and not adjusting them, of course, we could redraw resistance up here. That would be, accurate. We have prior highs, resistance here as well. But think about it like this, right? This was a very mechanical level. As we broke out above it, it should have acted as support if it was going to be a break and retest. Instead, obviously, we fail back back down underneath, and we get price acceptance underneath. We try again, but what happens? We make a clear lower high, and now we're right back down inside and underneath that breakout point at 311.50. So instead of redrawing this here, I think it's more useful to think about this in the context of, hey, who's feeling pain, who's being rewarded, so on and so forth. We've experienced two fake breakouts. They have produced lower highs in both instances. I would be fairly bearish in Binance Coin as of right now. Now, granted, the short trade is underneath the support here at 285.90, 286 to get us into 258 and then to the lower wick down here at 207. So that's not quite in play just yet, but you can clearly see how from a psychological perspective, these lower highs and two fake breakouts certainly do not bode well for any major reversals to the upside. Because of that, just like we've discussed in almost everything in today's video so far, it's got to be a break of the resistance trend line, probably to get to the major resistance trend line. If I pop this on auto, you can see where that, of course, is coming from up there, and then your next target is here. So the only long is if this breaks, if these somewhat hold for a higher low in here, and then we can crack this, that's the only long setup that there is currently based on everything, again, that we just discussed with the two fake breaks and the lower high. I would be leaning more bearish here inside of Binance Coin. Cardano, ADA, some interesting relative strength here with a little bit of a breakout from a double bottom. Now, granted, the consolidation that we're experiencing now is unfortunately underneath the neckline here, and there was virtually, for all intents and purposes, not much price acceptance above the neckline in the first place. Now, don't get me wrong. Could this start to form a higher low here, turn into a flag consolidation and break out again? Yeah, it could, but just in terms of location, this is not ideal for the overall pattern as a whole. Instead, it would have been better, of course, for consolidation here and then continuation. So nonetheless, I'm looking at this again as a little bit of a fake breakout, noting that the overall crypto space appears to be sort of dragging and giving bearish signals. I wouldn't be pushing my luck on something like Cardano, especially noting that the percentage move swings here are going to be, pretty crazy. Remember that we're talking about something sub $1 at this point in time. Nonetheless, levels that you're going to want to watch out for are 60 cents to the upside. If we can recapture that and then get price acceptance above, it's a good first step. And then maybe, again, this turns into the higher low. Currently, it's got to prove it with the acceptance above 60 cents before I would fall into that category. Given the current look here, I instead would be favoring, consolidation overall, just kind of back down in the midpoint of this overall range. I don't really think you have too much of an edge here. And instead, I would wait for the next breakdown to occur underneath about 40 cents here inside of Cardano. So kind of hands off in this one. It did not really produce a solid signal here up and over the neckline of the double bottom. So just being patient for the next structural setup. Next up, we've got Solana. Relative weakness in this one, again, forming a sort of beautiful descending triangle, right? We're always talking about lower high equal low reattempts. And what I mean by that, if you're new to the channel, is so here you go, lower high, lower high, lower high, low, equal low reattempt in short proximity of time. Again, 1, 2, 3 touches now. That sets up and classifies this as a flush point, descending triangle, whatever you want to call it. Basically looking for follow through here underneath 39 into our next area of support coming from $20.75. If we pop this on auto real quick and scrunch up the chart, you'll notice that that is a very, very, very important support here inside of Solana. So it's kind of got to hold when and if we get there from the breakdown of this bearish consolidation that is unfolding. The only reason to get long or start thinking with a long bias inside of Solana would be if all of these resistance trend lines can break overhead, right? So if this starts to crack and we change the trend, think about it like this. Your target should just be up to this prior high here at 58.78, and then we would seriously reconsider the chart again. Based on the lower highs that have continuously formed and the equal low reattempt in short proximity of time, I would carry a short bias here inside of Solana and look for breakdowns. Next up, we've got Polkadot. What's going on in Polkadot? A little bit more neutral than what we just saw in Solana, certainly. Clearly, still trying to get lower highs. Overall, it would be an equal set between here and here. But nonetheless, that's really not that impressive for any sort of long indication, certainly. On the upside, there might be some scalps to be had between 1070 and 1180, so about $1 move. And on something priced around $10, let's just round up and call it a 10% move there. That's certainly worth watching, okay? certainly worth watching. So in my estimation for scalps, yeah, that trade setup might be something to keep on your radar, but only if we start interacting with those levels in the first place, right? You're not going to blindly long it here in the midpoint of this overall range and expect that this unfolds. So if we get the breakout, fine, that's your upside trade here. It would require breaking the resistance trend line. Instead, again, feeling much more neutral, kind of more like Bitcoin, right? Want to be neutral in this overall range here. Longs are up and out over the highs, and shorts are down and out underneath 870 the lows for just continuation into this wick around $7 even. Overall, if we just pop this on auto, you'll notice it's been beat up for quite some time here. There's really no sense of, relative strength or looking at it as a safe haven. It's just not the case. And again, the crypto marketplace has been fairly boring the past couple of weeks going sideways in this range. So, I wouldn't fault you if you're like, you know what, you've said the same thing about all of these charts, you tune out, whatever. It just kind of is what it is when a majority of these things, they don't move in lockstep per se, but they're all very similar. Crypto.com coin, what's going on here? Chronos, clearly descending triangle, right? Lower highs, lower highs. Can we get the equal low reattempt in here? Technically, I think the breakdown might come from a little bit lower, around that 16-cent mark instead of 17 cents. Again, we're talking about fractions of a penny here, but nonetheless, this is still just not a coin that I would be bottom fishing in whatsoever. We've talked about this in the past. If we scrunch up the chart, we're basically making new all-time lows here. So there's no prior positions that were established over here that could potentially act as, demand and offer some support as we move into those levels. There's nothing there, so I would not be fishing for new longs inside of Crypto.com coin until we can put in a structural bottom. If it does want to reverse over the course of this upcoming week and get crazy on us, then really nothing to do until we can crack 20. So maybe you just set an alert there and you're patient for that sort of move to the upside. But overall, again, bear flag consolidation certainly in place here on Crypto.com coin. Matic, what's going on in Matic? Same idea. Again, I know I sound like a broken record, but here is your bear flag. We have all of these. Let me just actually zoom in on this a little bit, make it easier on your screen there. Zooming in, zooming in, zooming in. Here we go. Overall, again, high, lower high, low, equal low reattempt in short proximity of time. To me, it's looking for lower, not necessarily higher out of this pattern. If we do something like this and drop down the breakdown point to truly reflect this support a little bit more accurately, that's going to be 58 cents here inside of Matic. On the breakdown, your target is this lower wick at 48 cents. And again, nothing to do long in this one until we can crack up and over that 73.9, okay? That's what we have for an upside level. Next up, Mana. Again, sorry for just the relentless talking about balance areas, but we're stuck inside. Nothing to do long here until we take out 114, and your target's very conservative, just here to 135, or looking for breakdowns underneath 92.17 to get us into these lows here around 52.15. And again, we're talking about, fractions of pennies here. This is not $52.15. This, of course, is 50 cents and then 15 thousandths of a cent after that. Okay, so just be patient, wait for the either breakout or breakdown. Again, I probably wouldn't be pushing my luck in any of these. For me, I'm really just keeping tabs on the big boys up here at the top, and these are just sort of subsidiaries that keep us, the overall pulse on the crypto market fairly accurate. What do we have in Avalanche? AVX is the coin name here, of course. Again, another beautiful instance of a descending triangle bear pennant here. So overall, there's your bear pennant, right? Looking something like this. If you wanted to just classify it as a descending triangle, there it is. You have highs, lower highs, low, equal low, another equal low in short proximity of time after a lower high reattempt. I mean, to me, again, this is picture perfect stuff for downside continuation. And now that I've said that, I'm sure the market gods will say, you know what, in your face, and it's all going to rally higher over the course of the upcoming week. No, in all reality, there's nothing to really do long in any of these coins until we either break resistance trend lines and stop the micro downtrends that we're in, or breach these highs here for true confirmation that the trends are starting to shift. So again, in Avalanche here, your breakdown point's 22.35, and on the follow through to the downside, you're looking at $9.25. And just to scrunch up the chart and show you where that's coming from, it was the big rounded bottom low from right around in here. So that's quite a ways to fall if you look at it from this perspective. And I certainly would not be fishing for longs, at this area of support. It does not strike me that you have good risk reward here for the probability of an upside move. Next up, we've got Apecoin. Someone left a funny comment on another one of the videos about this not being the greatest, and they called it Ape and then some things after that. So I thought that was funny, at least. Nonetheless, you're still getting your descending triangle, slightly higher lows here. So maybe it's a little bit more symmetrical, but overall, I mean, you guys can clearly tell, right? We had this area of consolidation. Look at how perfectly we backtest it there, break, retest, and now for lower, here's actually another entry point, right? As you take out this low, you're looking for follow through for the next lower low, and that could, of course, come around this $5.08 mark. If you want to just round it to $5 even, I wouldn't fault you for doing that either. So overall, bearish look here inside of Apecoin with the break and retest, probably looking for lower. To the upside, again, nothing to really do until the resistance trend line breaks, or even more conservative traders, you're probably waiting for this level, 1050. Remember that we discussed that in past videos in quite a lot of detail. Remember, there was a lot of consolidation here. So really, even if we break the resistance trend line, there's still a high probability that anyone who is getting long in here is going to act as overhead supply as they come into break-even positions. They might just bail on the coin if there's any sort of upside lift in the first place here. So I'd be very skeptical of longs in Apecoin until 1050 is recaptured to the upside. Last but not least, what do we have in Voyager? Why did it make the cut today? It certainly is priced at, sort of a non-attractive price point for me. Again, I'm not really a big fan of these quote-unquote penny stocks of crypto, but nonetheless, look at this volatility. It's pretty hard to ignore that there's been some spur of interest in Voyager coin, and I also think it's worth noting that we have sort of this look here with a higher low in place, and we're also currently getting price acceptance above this breakout point. So again, those two reasons for me are going to be, decent reasons on why they should be on your watch list right now. Now, don't get me wrong, some big inverted hammers here, some big upper wicks are indicating some selling pressure at this prior pivot high. So what do I think is the play here? Well, given that we do have a lot of social media interest right now, I would watch for further consolidation. And then if this thing really is going to run, if it's going to turn into one of those coins that, social media picks up on and next thing you know, it's 100x'd, that's fine. There's the possibility for anything to really do that in crypto, but it's obviously got to break a level first. And that number is $1.30 here inside of Voyager token. If we can take that out, let's look left on this chart here. Let me actually just pop that on auto. There we go. It was a pretty relentless sell-off here. I'm not saying it's going to get to like $2 in the blink of an eye, but there's very little in terms of structure until we start getting into like 190, 210, $2 even. Notice on the way down, it was pretty just relentless selling. So again, overall consolidation. And then if, again, I know I just said again a bunch of times, but if social media is going to pick up on this and it's going to be like the next breakout token, it's going to come from up and over 130 in my estimation. So that's going to wrap up our crypto weekend report. If you enjoyed today's video, if you enjoyed the analysis, let me know down below in the comments section or by simply leaving the video a thumbs up. With all of that being said, the weekly watch list video will come out as scheduled on Sunday afternoon, and I wish you all a green trading day.